Good afternoon. I'm Régis Hamelin. I'm the CTO of BLUMORPHO. I would like to welcome you on this webinar. This webinar is brought to you by the eNSO consortium, which is funded under an Excel project. So this webinar is recorded and it will be available on the BLUMORPHO YouTube channel as well on the eNSO webinar platform on the eNSO page, landing page. And if you usually people like to have the slides, so if you want to receive the slides, please email me. My email is hamelin@blumorpho.com. Okay, so this is the third webinar in a series of 3. And we had the first webinar on energy harvesting, second one on the energy management, and today is the third one. So for energy harvesting, we had the opportunity to discuss with Alaa Makdissi, who is CEO of Solems and which is doing photovoltaics, with Yanina Paris from Mahle, and they collect energy from temperature difference. And Jérémy Guillen from NRB, which is a French company, a French startup, which is transforming motion into energy. And we had a second webinar with Raphaël Salo, who is the head of the laboratory storage of energy microsources at COA, and is also the coordinator of the eNSO project. So anything related to micro energy storage is under his responsibility. And we also had a presentation from Peter Spies from the Fraunhofer IIS, who is a group manager for integrated energy supplies. So these 2 webinars are also available from our YouTube channel. So you just visit our BLUMORPHO YouTube channel to have access to these 2 very interesting informations. So today, I would like first to introduce you to our guests. The first speech today is going to be given by Henk Schwietert, who is CEO of Evalan. So good afternoon, Henk. So you are on mute.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hi.
Yeah, good afternoon. The second pitch today is going to be given by Cairdac, Dr. Alaa Makdissi, who is CTO of Cairdac. Good afternoon, Alaa.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
And the last pitch for today is going to be given by Maastricht Instrument by Freek Boesten. Good afternoon, Freek.
Good afternoon, Régis.
Yeah, thank you for your participation and thank you for giving this information. So before we go into the details of the program today, I would like to start with a quick survey. I would like to launch a quick survey for this webinar. I would like to understand who you are for the moment, for the audience, and you can see that we would like to know if you are into medical devices, into autonomous systems other than medical devices. Of course, energy harvesting can be used in something else than medical devices, or if you are developing or selling components like batteries, energy harvesters, or electronic devices. So it will help us to understand the motivation of the audience to participate to our webinar. So thank you very much for your answers. And we're going to move to the next segment of this presentation. I want to give you more information about the eNSO consortium. The eNSO consortium is supported by the Excel working program. We have 33 partners over 5 third parties, and we are spread over 8 European countries. It started in January 2016, and it will end at the end of March, so next month. So we are very, very close to the end. The coordinator and leader of the program is Sewa Leti in Grenoble. So this is a project about micro energy management. eNSO stands for Energy for Smart Objects. The project is focusing on a very generic need within IoT, which is the management of energy. So in this project, we are not developing sensors, we are not developing data processing or data transmission. This is done out of the project. We are really focusing on everything which is needed to manage the energy. It can be energy harvesting, it can be wireless charging, for example. This is one way to do energy harvesting. But we also work on power conditioner and on micro energy storage. So among when all the building blocks have been developed, we have also developed some demonstrators. We have a total of 15 use cases. We call that first segmentation within smart society with, for example, biometric cards or smart meters or smart locks. Which need to be autonomous. It's really transformation of a device which is passive into an active device, and it requires some energy. And we want also to look at what is going on into mobility and production. And the segment that we're going to discuss today is in the health sector. So you see that we have many different demonstrators. We're going to talk more about wearables and implantable devices for today. So a few examples of the building blocks which have been developed in the frame of eNSO. And every building blocks can be made available for you if there's some interest. So some energy storage solutions have been developed by CEA, and we have two different flavors. One is done with a flexible substrate, and the other one is done with conventional silicon technology, and it's on solid state. It's much more compact. The second one is really the autonomous energy harvesting system. It integrates on the flexible substrate the energy harvester. Here you have a smart wireless charging, which is here with a coil. This is the antenna for the charging. We also have the power conditioner, which is here. And on top of that, you can integrate, you have here the two pads for the micro battery. You have here a version on the bottom right on the picture. You can see that the battery has been integrated in the system. So the full AMS can be made available either for test for you if you want to test this system, or if you want to integrate that into a product. These two options are doable. And finally, we talked previously on some electronic development. So the Fraunhofer has made a lot of development on electronics itself. So I will ask you to refer to the dedicated webinar. And of course, if you want to have access to this technology, we will be more than happy to make the introduction. So I will start. Before we go into the presentation, I will ask you one more question. Do you have interest into any of these building blocks? And would you be interested to have more information in one of these building blocks? So it can be the energy harvesting solutions. We didn't mention them here, but we can connect you to the startups. It can be in micro batteries. It can be the AMS. The AMS can be also delivered to you for test. Or if you're interested into electronics, this is also something that we can share with you. I will let you a few more seconds to reply to this poll. And I thank you very much. This is very appreciated. Okay, so now we're going to move to the program itself. So I would like to welcome again Henk Schwietert from Evalan. You are CEO of the company. And you have to, so I will hand over the presentation to you. You can now change the slides.
Okay, hello everybody. So I'm Henk Schwietert from Evalan. I will talk for a few minutes about or introduce our company to you. I will talk about one of our products, which is called BGrid, which is a central part of the work we're doing at the moment and about a smart care concept that is based on this product. And then I will talk for a few minutes about the energy-related topics that we addressed within the eNSO project as part of this smart care concept. So Evalan is primarily a development partner of customers, and we make end-to-end IoT solutions for customers that are in industry. Companies like Heineken and Unilever are our clients. We do that in healthcare. We work on for customers in agriculture. We also have cooperation with the Dutch Army, where we make certain applications. They are not defense related, but they're related to monitoring soldiers when they do exercises and training, so they're more health related. We also have projects in real estate, and we support research organizations as well. So we make these end-to-end IoT solutions, and we do that from beginning to end. So we help our clients when they are in the concept design phase. We help them with business models and value propositions. We then often organize a so-called design thinking workshop. You see a picture here where together with our clients, we try to crystallize the solution from ideas through user stories and desired functionalities to a first minimum valuable product approach. We then develop it. We arrange for the certification. We produce the parts, the elements that are needed for the solution, and then we often operate it under an SLA. We did that, for example, for this application. This is a smart building application, which we are now marketing under the name BGrid. It is a solution that makes a building from a regular building to a building that has various smart functionalities. And it's at the moment primarily used in office buildings, where it has several main functionalities. One of them is purely related with the building infrastructure itself. So it controls temperature, relative humidity, ambient light, the CO2 and presence detection, and it has a few other sensor functionalities as well. It does that in many places in the building through a wireless sensor network solution, and it collects that information to the building management system, which can then control also through the same infrastructure. And at the same time, this solution offers various benefits to the users in the building. It can help users find empty desks, rooms that are occupied. It can provide other types of services like this through apps that were specifically developed on top of this BGrid infrastructure. It's currently operating at about 40 buildings in the world. And what we wanted to do within eNSO is to make this the basis for a smart care solution or smart care concept, where we would do the same, maybe in a slightly smaller version, but for hospitals and care facilities. And we integrated that with, we developed a device, which is this device that is shown in the picture, which we integrated into this system. And this device can support, for example, patients or healthcare professionals in the sense that it has a call-up button. So it's wireless and people carry it with them. And that means that patients or elderly people can use it to call up support wherever they are in the building. It can also process sensor data, for example, heart rate data that is collected from, say, Bluetooth sensors that people can wear. It tracks activity, steps, energy use, and it has a fall detection element in it. So with this, we believe we can open the door to healthcare applications where we use the smart building infrastructure for managing the building aspects of, let's say, a hospital, combined with functionalities for patients. And we can then also add functionalities related to tracking assets through the building that help improve the efficiency or the productivity of the people in the hospital. Because one of the elements of that infrastructure, which I did not mention, is that it can real-time identify locations of Bluetooth devices. So it can also detect the location of this device. The type of functions that we can then deliver to patients and to the hospital are things like patient safeguarding. We can monitor physiological parameters that can happen real time and continuously, depending on the need for that. We can do real-time localization of the patient. As I said, we can help the efficiency of healthcare workers that way, and we can provide productivity improvements like asset tracking and also traceability. And with historical data, we can give hospital management insights in, say, the actual historical use of their equipment, like, for example, infusion pumps, which is something that healthcare professionals are looking for. And yeah, with this system, they can quicker find them, but they can also track historically how much they actually use them, in the sense that if the next investment decision comes up, they can look back at that and decide that if indeed it's right to buy another 500 of them, or maybe they can do with 200 because they find out that actually many of them are not used all the time. And the last functionality that is in this list is that it can interact with other smart objects like locks, etc. Now, this wearable has a few, we looked at a few specific elements within the eNSO project. For example, the longevity of it from an energy point of view. And in this picture, you can see that under different use modes, it uses different amount of energy. And that's one of the things we did, was we implemented many different power levels or energy use levels in the device, depending on which functionalities are actually being used. And so when we tested this, we found out that if we use all functions all the time continuously, it can last about 3 days on the current battery, but it can continue operating for longer than a month if we smartly use only those functionalities at the right time, whichever we need. So that's one of the results that we found during this project. Another point that we tested is the accuracy of the localization. And you see two pictures here that show some of those results. On the picture to the left shows a location of a device, of one of these Bluetooth devices, which is right in the center of this graph. And the dots show the actual results that our localization algorithm found. And that you can see here that the orientation of the device is a factor in the accuracy. In one of the orientations, the accuracy is about ½ a meter or so, and the other one it's about 1 meter. And actually it has a lot more spread to it as well. The picture on the right shows actually the effect of the human body as part of this accuracy. So you see at point about 2.2 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis, you see 2 dots. which is the localization of the wearable and the localization of a person. And then you can see a few other dots in this graph that show the results of the localization algorithm, where if there is no human presence, this error is approximately the same as what I just said, something around 0.5 meter or so, but it gets quite a bit more due to the effects of the human body interference. The third test that we did during the eNSO project from an energy point of view is this one, which is actually done on one of the nodes of the wireless sensor network, which you can see here in the picture to the right. So this is one of the nodes that is used in this network, which we fitted with a photovoltaic cells that was developed by one of the other partners in the project, Solms. And we then operated it in its normal mode. And the graph below shows the battery voltage over time. So the important thing to point out is that this was working indoor with only lights that is only light available from lamps that are regularly in use in the building. And you can see that the x-axis shows a period of about 24 hours. You can see that the voltage of the battery drops very slightly in that time while it's still performing all its functionalities. So we found that we can actually operate this node pretty much continuously without any external energy addition. That's in a nutshell what I wanted to present to you today.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. So we will have a Q&A session at the very end of this webinar. So for the audience who would like to ask some questions, you can save your questions and just you can shoot them into the chat box, and I will ask the question to our speaker at the very end. So thank you again, Henk, for this presentation. So the next speaker for today is Dr. Alaa Makdissi. You are CTO of Cairdac, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to present you our application. And first time I'm going to give a short description of our company and especially the market and the concept of our unique product today. We are a startup company, and then I will describe some challenge related to the development and commercialization of this product, and of course its validation and reliability as it's an unblockable device. So Cairdac was created, sorry, it's too fast, by the end of 2016, and today we have one main investor, which is Doliam Group. It's a French investor holding several companies working in the medical domain. We are based on Antony, and today the staff count is about 13 persons. Of course, it's a small team, but we have different cooperative projects. eNSO is one of them. We just finished another big program also, H2020, and we are working with the academic partner and industrial partner. Just to describe the position of our product, so it's related to cardiac pacemaker. I put some reference and the link to the evaluation of the cardiac pacemaker. And we can see that from the first pacemaker, which was AC powered by the main supply, till to 4 years ago, the evolution was similar to most of the implantable medical device. It means miniaturization, introducing battery, and of course, during some years, during 20 to 30 years, the big evolution was related to adding new function, not a big revolution related to the size and longevity of these devices, but they have more telemetry option, communication, more safety, more option by software. The first generation was a purely two transistor oscillator, which was able to only stimulate the patient continuously without taking into account any physiological need of the patient. Today, since 5 to 4 years now, there are new products in this family of pacemaker, which is called the leadless pacemaker. It means now the pacemaker, instead of being implanted in the chest, subcutaneous implantation, it's introduced directly to inside the cardiac cavity. And the expectation is to go forward more miniaturization and use what they call in the medical domain batteryless devices. So Cairdac application is related to the not existing today image of on the right of the slides, which is the batteryless devices. In terms of medical expectation from the use point of view, the main need regards the simplification of the implementation procedure in order to reduce the cost of hospitalization. So more simple implementation, and of course, without reducing the safety related to this product. And of course, the final objective for all the cardiac therapy is to have several implants communicating each one with the other. So from our side, we our product is qualified as a leadless pacemaker. The difference between our device and the other products that we don't use primary battery, so we use piezoelectric energy harvester as the power source, as the main power source for this capsule. Today's existing product, there are two big actors on the market, and the number of actors is increasing. We know about new actors preparing some clinical tests, but this capsule today is limited to single chamber. It means the capsule is implanted in one chamber, and there is no communication possibility between a different capsule. And this covers only a small percent of the global market. So Cairdac is targeting two axes of progress regarding to the state of the art. The first one is the longevity of the device. With the battery today, the longevity is between 5 to 7. Maybe sometimes there are some manufacturers are claiming 10 years. From our side, we are claiming a reliability of energy harvester more than 15 years. So, but the product is designed to have no limitation regarding the longevity. But we cannot, in the first time, guarantee an eternal product. So the idea from industrial point of view, you must put some number on the lifetime, and we are working on proving the reliability of the product for at least 15 years. On the other axis, the fact that our leadless capsule is powered by an energy harvester, it means that we will be able to add function, even if they are power consuming, as soon as this power is not higher than the produced power by the harvester. So even if the competitor today can introduce, for example, communication with the same size of the capsule, they are going to reduce the longevity of the device. In our case, we can see the energy harvester as a higher limit of power consumption, but if the average power consumed by the device is lower than the energy produced by the harvester, we can add extra function. So the concept of the product is a self-sufficient pacemaker. In terms of advantage regarding the eligible patient, today when you implant a capsule, this longevity of the primary battery of about 5 years is a limiting factor when selecting patient, because for this technology, for this miniaturization, there is no solution today to remove the capsule and to replace it with another capsule. So the solution advised by the competition today is to leave the capsule inside the heart and implant a new capsule. Of course, if your patient is 40-year-old, you cannot continue to add capsules each 5 to 7 years, because the volume of the cardiac cavity is very small. And in terms of function, as I said, in terms of function, we can add new function. Whatever the complexity of this function, the only condition to be respected that the average power consumption and not the peak power consumption. So the concept we are using, it's to use piezoelectric material. Piezoelectric material, you know the concept that when you apply a stress to this material, you generate some power or some voltage. So the design of the harvester is itself, we make some benchmark between different architecture, and we choose what we call the BLUMORPHO architecture. It means you have a small beam, very thin one, covered by piezoelectric material, and you have a proof mass, which will, when applying some force, some acceleration, and fortunately inside the heart there are continuously some mechanical energy. So the form factor of the harvester must be adapted to the form factor of the capsule, and in this way we have made some progress regarding the optimization of this piezoelectric harvester till reaching the power level required to power a pacemaker. Regarding the architecture of the capsule, I can show some view of the CAD view of our capsule. So on the left we can see the harvester composed of a beam in yellow and a proof mass. In order to optimize the volume inside the capsule, we use a different approach, because classical implants in tabular form are using a cylinder which is the battery, and beside it they put the electronic. In order to make a better use of this volume, we designed a new architecture by putting around the harvester, in all the available volume, we filled it with the micro battery, the electronic, and the mechanical structure required to make fixation of this energy harvester. In terms of integration, the main difficulty is related to the size of this electronic and the volume available for this electronic is not uniform. So in some zone we can put high component of a height with 1 millimeter, but when we are close to the extremity of the PCB, we have only third or fourth of this height. So, and of course, we must keep enough space for the beam to move between the two PCBs that we can see on the right. So we can call it's one PCB, but one is positioned from one side, the other is on the other side of the harvester, and there are a flex connecting the two board. In terms of battery, I'm going to give you some scenario of use of this battery, but we can see that we have a prototype with two solutions. The first solution in the top image is done with an industrial small company working on micro battery, and the other one is during the eNSO project. And as for all new technology, we are making benchmark comparison and of course reliability between different solutions before choosing the final solution. But the dimensions are in the order of 5 to 10 millimeter. The height of the battery is limited by the integration capacity. So we are expecting to be able to stack several layers of the battery, as we can see here on the orange part, and the other side will be reserved to the electronic component. Okay. So in terms of use case for this power source, so the power source is not the rechargeable battery. I will give an explication about that. So the main source of energy is the harvester, but the harvester is related, output energy is related to the mechanical power, and of course any physiological signal, you know, there are big variation between the morning, the evening, from one patient to the other. So the idea is that the micro battery is used as a buffer between the harvester and the electronic. In order to be able to handle some specific function. For example, as you can see on this graph, the main power consumption could be about 500 nanoamps, but from time to time we have human body communication, which is consisting of sending some pulses by the capsule, not for stimulation, but only for communication between several capsules. And of course, we have a Bluetooth communication, which is used not very often, only sometime, maybe one time during per day, during 5 seconds only. But we must be able to handle this Bluetooth communication. So as you can see, the harvester by itself, today it's very hard to make an harvester able to provide this peak of energy of power consumption and this one. So the micro battery is used to store the output of the harvester, and in average the energy produced by the harvester must be higher than the energy consumed by the pacemaker. And when I say in average, we must define what is this average. So today we are targeting a battery which will allow to the cardiac implant to function even if there is no energy at all produced by the harvester during 1 month to 2 months. So in terms of integration, of course, we started by what I'm calling this in this slide the first generation COTS battery, but it was also the first generation COTS electronic. So in order to integrate the electronic and the battery around the harvester, We can see at the left here the electronic component. The battery, the micro battery was not ready, and even we didn't have enough space on the PCB to integrate it. So we used COTS battery. In fact, this one is a primary battery used in auditive implant. But this allowed us to make some preclinical tests on animal to make measurement of the harvester output, to validate the Bluetooth communication from the inside the body to the outside of the body. And now we are working on the second generation solution. Of course, all the COTS component will be replaced by ASIC. So we have two ASIC, one for the pacemaker function, pacing, sensing, interface to 3D accelerometer in order to estimate the patient physiological needs, or sometimes we call it metabolic needs. And of course, we need the power management in order to handle this battery charging. And of course, the microcontroller or CPU with Bluetooth transceiver integrated to this CPU. And in terms of micro battery, we are leaving one side of the PCB for the micro battery. Here we can show that we made a choice to put two batteries inside one capsule in order to make in the future a reuse of this battery. Maybe the trend will be to make smaller implant, other application where we need smaller battery, and the penalty of using two batteries instead of one is not big. We are going to lose less than 10% because of the packaging of the battery. But this is more long-term solution than one battery by one implant. In terms of validation, so all this shows that the integration, the challenge are very big, but in terms of validation, in the medical implant device, the only credible way to prove the concept is to make what we call animal test or preclinical test. Here we can see two phases which were achieved by Cairdac. The first one is the acute test. It means you have the test during one day in the operating room on animal, and we can see the iPad tablet on the animal, which are big in this case, and the capsule containing the harvester on the X-ray. So this we made a big number of these preclinical tests, acute one, in order to collect data also for the validation of this harvester. And today we are able to avoid doing this acute test again, because we have the capability to reproduce this cardiac motion on a vibration test bench that we developed specifically to accelerate this validation of the harvester. And also the power management unit, because we are going to test, before going to do some animal tests now on the lab, the behavior of the power management unit when connected to the harvester. And the second phase was a preclinical test, the chronic test. It means we implanted the capsule on animals, and in this case, it was we made some choice in order to be able to monitor this capsule, remote monitoring. So we chose a gateway that we fixed on the animal back, which is able to communicate all the time with the capsule, and by SMS or any web connection, we are able to make interrogation and remote monitoring of the data of the capsule. So this proof of concept today is the first step of development by Cairdac, the next step will be to start an industrial development, which is expecting to start very soon in 2 or 3 months. Regarding the position of our solutions that we are proposing with respect to the existing product, we have a rechargeable battery instead of the primary one. We use the same sensor because from the clinical point of view, it will be very long to use new sensor. The capacity of the harvester, of course, is new in this domain. We are expecting that we will be challenged with the regulatory authority on this part, because this is a new concept introduced to long-term implantable device. And of course, the presence of energy harvester will allow to add a new function without any penalty to the longevity of the device. But the main important function that we are going to add is the intercapsule communication, which will allow, us to bypass the limitation of the current solution, which cover only 20% of the pacemaker market, because the capsule is alone with 1 cardiac chamber, and the need, the big need today is to have at least 2 capsules, one in the atrium and the other one in the ventricle. And it's because of this energy harvester and the energy storage solutions that we developed that we are able to answer this challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And without waiting any longer, I will switch to the last speaker for today. So let me give you the control. So Freek. No, I'm sorry, I have to make some. Yeah, you have now the control of the presentation. You can make your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, Régis. I'm giving a short presentation today about the wearable activity monitoring solution that we have developed within the eNSO project, and the work that has been done on improving the energy management of the sensor. I'm working as a product developer at Maastricht Instruments. It's a spin-off company of the University Medical Center of Maastricht in the Netherlands. And we closely collaborate there with several clinical departments on the development of new technologies that can improve healthcare. The products that we currently work on are related to the measurement of energy metabolism and nutrition and physical activity measurement. As you can see here, it's the central technology is a wearable sensor device that is worn just above the kneecap, and it allows extremely high accurate measurements of physical activity for 7 days in one row, 7 days, 24 hours. It's a waterproof design, so you can wear it even when showering or swimming. The accelerometer sensors, they can be worn on several places on the body. We have different applications for that in development. You can wear it on the chest combined with ECG measurements. You can wear it on the arms and on the wrist to measure upper extremity movements, which is also important in cases where people have suffered from stroke or muscle disease. And you can wear the sensor on the trunk to perform gait measurements and to assess the stability of persons. And of course, we can wear it above the knee to get a very accurate assessment of the physical activity. The sensors that we developed, they are combined with different type of software solutions. In some cases, it involves a clinical assessment of the physical activity, where you can get in many details the physical activity parameters of a person. And we also apply it in a more clinical setting where we have combined the sensor with an app and database service that is called Hospital Fit. The Hospital Fit is a coaching tool that is used to improve the recovery of hospitalized patients. And it works as a combination between several therapists that can walk around in the department or in the ward, and they can monitor the physical activity of several patients. The patients themselves, they can also monitor their own activity and get personalized recovery advice. So how that works is that the patient on his app, his or her app, can see the physical activity of the day. They get a score of recovery, and they can get an overview of selected training videos that they can use to improve their recovery. The therapist has a bit more options in the app because they are scoring the recovery of the patient, and they can also switch between patients when they walk around in the hospital. All the data that is collected by the wearable sensor is communicated via the apps to a central server where it's also used for data analysis, and the therapists in the hospital can evaluate if this tool is an effective tool in improving the recovery of the patients. If we look a bit more in detail in the app, you can see the physical activity is measured by the sensor and is visualized for a day and over several days. And in this example, you can already see that the moments when the patient got out of bed during the night and started walking in the morning, these are measured very accurately, and they add up to a total amount of activity minutes for each day. The focus on recovery in the hospital is especially needed because in Netherlands, if people are hospitalized, in most cases they are put in a bed and they can stay there for almost the entire duration of their stay. We've measured in about 150 people in the hospital the physical activity patterns, and it's scarily low, the amount of physical activity that people have in the hospital. It also harms the recovery because if you stay in the hospital in a bed for 1 week, you lose about 2 kilograms of muscle tissue that you need very urgently to recover well from your surgery or any other disease that you've had. So that's why the Department of Physiotherapy in the Hospital of Maastricht had this idea of improving the recovery of the patients during their stay in the hospital. And they want to do that by these different ways to focus on physical activity, training videos, and to communicate about the recovery status of the patient. The data that you will get from the sensor, it can show you the recovery progress, and you can see in details the physical activity distribution over the days. So again, to summarize, the Hospital Fit solution, it has a very high accuracy. It's focused on providing recovery feedback and video exercises to support the patient the entire day when they're in the hospital during their recovery. The challenge for Maastricht Instruments in this project was to transform the current wearable device that we have into a much more patient comfortable sensor. We have envisioned the idea of making it into a patch that you can apply on the body, and it measures your body functions, and once you are ready to go home from the hospital, you can take off the patch, hand it in at your therapist, and this patch can support you during the entire hospital stay by measuring vital functions such as physical activity, and maybe in the future also parameters like temperature and or heart rate. In order to achieve the flexible and flat form factor that we have envisioned, we needed to optimize the energy power consumption profile of this device. So to do that, we started with a current system design that we have, and we performed a lot of real-time measurements on the power consumption. So that gave us an idea where the different energy savings can be made, either in hardware or in firmware solutions. So in a few steps, we could optimize the current system design that has a battery of about 70 milliamp hour up to about 7 milliamp hour, which is an optimization of about 90%. And we did that first by optimizing the microcontroller that is used in this device. Then we optimized the wireless communication. And in the end, we also did some further optimizations in the microcontroller. We are currently testing the flexible batteries of the eNSO project in a prototype of this device, and we evaluate it in terms of form factor and also in terms of safety of the critical components. In a medical certified product, the safety is an important topic to consider, and that's why we have focused on this part in the project, because also the new type of batteries, when they are flexible and flat, need to have the same level of safety that is required by a medical device. We're also testing the user experience and the hygiene, if it can be improved further by means of wireless charging and a flexible and flat design of the wearable sensor patch. So with that, I conclude my overview of Maastricht Instruments activities within eNSO. And if there are any questions, I'll be sure that Régis will collect them and will be happy to answer it.
Thank you very much again for this very interesting presentation. We're going to move to the Q&A session now, but before we go into that, I would like to ask the audience who has been kind enough to participate to stay up to now in the webinar to mention if they want to have further information either from Evalan, Cairdac, or Maastricht Instruments. So while you are answering to this quick poll, I'll be so I will start the questions. Of course, if you have any questions, use the chat box, and I will make a pleasure to transfer the question. So my first question will go to Evalan. So did you mention the battery size? What is the battery capacity of your wearable device?
Okay, I do not have that information at the moment available. I will have to come back to you on that. I'm sorry.
No problem. And so what is market acceptance so far? Because the uniqueness of your system is really to have something that can be integrated into a building management system, pardon me. What is your entry point? Do you go to the hospital or do you talk to the building management system people?
Yeah, so we are in discussions with several hospitals. There is, I think, a very big interest from hospitals. The way this can get into the market is in case of a hospital renovation or a big expansion project where, say, a new wing is being built in a hospital. There are several of those projects going on in the Netherlands, and we are in discussions with those. And in one of these hospitals, this system is actually in the specifications of the hospital, which means that those specifications are part of the preparations for the new construction that then get sent to contractors that bid on it, and then at some point the building starts. So you are still looking at least 2 years before that is actually in operation. So I can say there's a lot of interest. What we are also trying to do is work on smaller facilities where we can much faster get into actually active operation of systems, and that's more around elderly care facilities. But we do not have, just to be sure, we do not have any hospital at the moment where this is in operation. We have about 40 office buildings where this B-grid system is now active. And yeah, you have to think about installations that have up to 3,000 of these nodes inside the building. And that's working very well, and we're actively adding that to other projects at the moment.
We have one question from the audience, which I think is quite interesting, which is addressed to the three speakers. So maybe Henk, you can start to reply, and the others can comment as well. So what was the driving factor for choosing Bluetooth as the communication technology? So basically, why Bluetooth?
Well, at the time when we chose it, the most important factor was that we wanted to make a combination between, say, an infrastructure like what we have created and mobile phones. And at that point, that was the most we thought was the most logical choice. I think at the moment, mobile phones also have a lot of other options. But at that time, this was the main reason why. So we wanted to have the ability to have a direct interaction with the mobile phones. And since, yeah, almost everybody carries one with him or her, we thought that that was a good approach.
Okay, Freek, Alaa, can you comment on this? Is it as well for mobile phone compatibility that you choose to use BLE?
Yes, in order to reduce the cost of the infrastructure used by the patient, because proprietary communication today used for communication with cardiac implant means that you must manufacture and give freely to the patient some home monitor. And the questions that were raised, if the home monitor could be a generic device, which not necessarily manufactured by the company, it would be a good point.
Okay.
But the problem...
And for Maastricht instrument, again, is it, again, compatibility with smartphone? Freek? Freek, we can't hear you. Okay, we seem to have a sound issue on in Maastricht instrument. So I will relay that question to Maastricht instrument. So let's go back to Evalan and Henk Schwietert. Yeah, Freek?
There was a short interruption in the internet connectivity.
Okay, sorry about that.
Indeed, we have selected Bluetooth as a technology to allow the sensors to communicate with the smartphone of a patient or of a research subject in a clinical study.
Okay.
It allows for a very flexible approach towards developing the software for this system. And you can operate it without any dedicated technologies, which are easy to implement in the system electronics.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So going back to Evalan and Henk, I have another question for you coming from the audience. Is your solution based upon the building management solution for patient and asset tracking?
Don't fully understand the question, but what I can say about that is the infrastructure solution that we have for buildings really goes beyond the classic building management system. So you have in these buildings a building management system. Our wireless sensor network is installed in the building and sends its measurement data to the building management system. Their controllers, etc., determine outputs for valves and all kinds of other things. And then it sends that back to either parts of the system that we are not involved with, or back to our system when we control valves or, for example, in heating and ventilation. So it is
maybe I can
extension of the building management system. Huh?
Yeah, I have maybe a precision for that question. The question is, can it be self-standing? Do you need a building management solution, or can it be self-standing?
Okay. No, you don't need that. You can also have it as a self-standing system. Yes. Sorry.
No, but that's all right. There was I received the precision for that question. Okay, thank you very much. So I will move to a question for Cairdac. Usually when we talk about implantable device, we have a primary battery, or even when it's rechargeable, a system which is rechargeable can be fully charged and then fully discharged. Here we are in a situation where the energy harvester is permanently charging the battery. So what difference does it make in terms of design, or can you elaborate on that?
Yes, so yeah, in fact, this data of number of supported number of recharge cycle is related to the reliability issue. So first of all, the number of full recharge discharge for an implantable device with a battery of some milliamps, it will be about some hundred of cycle. But the other advantage of using energy harvester, that you are going never to discharge and charge completely the battery, because the battery is only a buffer. Maybe it will be fully charged, but never fully discharged, because the application, the software must be taken to account all these limitations. And the number of cycle, if you have a battery which support 100 full cycle of charge discharge, it will be going to support maybe 200 to 400 of partial cycle of charge discharge.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have another question from the audience, and that's again a question for all of you. So far we have decided, in the frame of eNSO, we are studying some micro batteries, and the question is, did you consider supercap technology instead of micro batteries? So and the reason for that is that I believe it should be a good solution to supply short time power, such as BLE communication, with advantage of no degradation with charge discharge cycle. That's a comment from the audience. That's the kind of advocate for supercap instead of micro batteries. So do you want to comment on that? And that's a question open for everyone.
Yes, for Cairdac, we make assessment of this technology in another European project, and the result are maybe the optimal solution could be a mix of the two, but clearly today the performance of supercap in terms of leakage are very far from the performance of rechargeable micro battery. So this is a key point that that are favorable for micro battery today.
Mm-hmm. And I must stress that the charge discharge cycle which have been performed in the frame of the eNSO project were considered as satisfying compared to the state of the art. So indeed, leakage current are well known for supercaps. So ideally, a combination of both can be considered. Okay, I'm going to move to final questions, maybe for Maastricht Instruments. So here we had the Evalan case, which is a little bit of a borderline between a medical device and a non-medical device. In your system, your wearable device is really a qualified medical device. So could you comment on what makes a difference between a wearable device or activity tracker and what you do at Maastricht Instruments?
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. That's a question and a topic often discussed. For example, for physical activity measurements, you can buy a lot of devices on the market nowadays. Many people have activity trackers or sports watches, and essentially they perform the same type of measurements that the sensors do that we are working on. But as soon as you apply a piece of technology in a hospital for the treatment of a patient, it becomes a medical device. So if it's only used for example, physical activity promotion, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be a medical device. The software that is used to provide feedback to the patients is also classified as a medical device. For example, if patients start wearing these sensors and they become too active after they had a surgery, then there might be a risk of falling incidents or maybe of training overload. So in those cases, you should always be aware of the risks that are associated with the medical device. Another topic to consider is the safety of the device. So all the components that are used in there need to have medical certifications in them so that they are inherently safe to use inside of the medical device. And especially the battery is a really important module in a medical device, since it can lead to burns or heating, and that is of course something you don't want to have when you treat people with these type of sensors.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go back to your slide where you show the patch here. I think it's very interesting because you made a decision to use the MS here, which is a fully flexible substrate which integrates all the energy management and the micro battery to integrate it into the system. So what was the reason for adopting this approach instead of integrating basically all the components one by one?
Yeah, we did a lot of studies in the hospital where we are developing wearable devices and wear them on the body. And it appears that a nice and flat design with rounded curves is very much desired by patients and also healthcare professionals. So it doesn't cause a stigmatization effect, or that people are asked what they are wearing on their body. And it should reassure the patients and not become a distraction when they are wearing such type of technology. So the patch is an ideal form factor that we have envisioned, and especially by using these ready-made components like the AMAS module, it becomes easy to integrate the whole into a thin package that can be integrated inside the patch design.
So the size is important. You said that you wanted to have something really compact, and maybe you can elaborate on that, but also the wearability, you want something which is really conformal and that can be really comfortable for the patient.
Yeah, it should indeed be comfortable, and also it should ensure an optimal hygiene when using the sensor. So you should be able to wear it all day long, 24 hours per day. It should not cause any skin irritation, and that's why also the design should be breathable, ideally, so that it can stay on the skin as long as possible for the measurements.
Okay, so thank you very much for your answers, for your replies. Of course, for the audience, if you want to have contact with people here, don't hesitate to send me an email to hamelin@blumorpho.com. Again, this webinar is recorded and will be soon available onto our YouTube channel. And I want to thank you again for your participation. This was a quite long webinar. Usually we make shorter programs, but thank you for staying that long. And yeah, I would like to wish you a very good day and talk to you soon. Remain informed onto our activity for our next webinars. So thank you everyone and have a great day. Bye-bye.